Chair. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council workshop. Before our workshop, we will have a public hearing. I will be standing in the stead of Mayor Javito, who's having some personal issues that he's dealing with on tonight, so let's keep him in prayer. Also, Mary Beth, let's keep her in our prayers as well. She says that she'll be back on next week. So with that being said, before we go into our workshop, we're going to conduct a public hearing. There should be a sign-in sheet that will be going around, so I'd ask each of you to please ensure that you sign acknowledgement that you were here present to participate in the public hearing. Okay, with that being said, we're going to receive input on ordinance 2022-12. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 3.5, Boat and Safety of the Town of Port Royal Code ordinances by appealing and replacing the required permit for mowing, prohibit mowing within certain distance of public boat landings, bridges, private docks, and marinas. Prohibit derelict and abandoned vessels, and giving the Port Royal Police Department authority to seize and tow vessels in violation.
And just real quickly, we brought this to council for consideration. State of Florida has adopted very similar rules regarding derelict boats. There's some concern about them moving north. The city of Folly Beach crafted this ordinance. It was based upon some legislation that was written by Spencer Wetmore, who is the representative in the State House from the Folly Beach area. She provided some enabling legislation that allowed municipalities to pass these ordinances so that we could get a handle on potential derelict boats that may be mooring, unregistered, unlicensed, lack of insurance, everything you can imagine. So you don't open up the scenarios where we end up with these derelict boats.
And that applies to unattended and abandoned boats as well. Okay.
So we say private docks, does it apply to our, is this private dock over here?
Yeah.
We consider, okay.
Right, and that is more of a concern about maneuverability. I know that many of you are probably familiar with what you see over at the boat landing right off Seattle Parkway.
Yeah.
So trying to avoid a situation like that.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
Do we have any input from the public in regards to this ordinance, proposed ordinance? Yes, sir. We would like to acknowledge, and please come up and state your name and for the record.
My name is Richard Beasley, 223 Willow Point Road, Port Royal. I don't know if this is on or not, whether I'm loud enough to be heard, but Port Royal Road, Willow Point Road in the town of Port Royal. I sent you all what I think is a kind of a brief statement. I'd like to make it sure it gets in the public record and the other voters in the town here. I won't read the whole thing. I would get too long-winded if I just did it, ad lib here, so I did write it down so that I try to keep myself within a couple minutes. Mr. Mayor, Town Council, Mr. Mayor in absentia, Town Council, citizens, staff of Port Royal. My wife Penny and I would like to commend and thank the current Town Council for tackling this issue, which is long overdue in its need to be addressed. Through neglect by prior councils, you have now been placed in a difficult position which requires action. We first discovered Port Royal and Beaufort in 2004 when we sailed up Port Royal Sound in the Beaufort River. It was our first overnight trip, and I recently purchased a 45-foot sailboat. It was, in a long story short, we then spent 8 years living aboard our sailboat, cruising from Maine to Key West and the islands on annual journeys following the weather. Every year we found ourselves anchoring, taking mooring, or visiting marinas in Port Royal and Beaufort, sharing times with fellow cruisers and enjoying the hospitality, restaurants, grocery stores, and other facilities the area has to offer. Liveaboard cruises are a significant community up and down the coast. They keep on moving. And this community adds to the economy and character of a town. They are welcomed by most towns. The city of St. Mary's in Georgia, Thanksgiving every year, hosts about 150 cruising sailboats. The town has a Thanksgiving dinner for everybody. The town provides the ham and the turkeys, and the cruisers bring all the fixings. It's quite an event, but you know, it's something they say, thank you, we love you cruisers, and the cruisers give back. So anyway, word spreads quickly among sailors if the town is not welcome. They just keep on going. While the proposed ordinance is long overdue in its intent to clean up abandoned, derelict, and environmentally hazardous boats, it also will prevent law-abiding, responsible cruisers from visiting the area. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are several sections that I sent to the town that I think need addressing. Those sections of the ordinance, and I won't bore all of you with them, but if all of those are enacted, it will be illegal for a cruising sailboat to drop an anchor or pick up a mooring or even visit a marina in the town of Port Royal. You can't anchor within a mile of either one of the Bell Bridge or the Sands Landing or the Ladies Island McTee Bridge. You can't anchor within a mile. Basically, you're zoned out of anchoring. You can't stay at a marina if you're a liveaboard cruiser. You know, you just can't do it according to the ordinance. So I mean, there are things that need to be addressed.
Richard, we ask that you address council.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll stand over here and get all of you.
No, that's fine. We're doing this live, so we want to go back to, Sam, you can go back to the.
You got the microphone there. This is streamed on Facebook, so.
Okay, I didn't know I was gonna be on TV. Penny and I urge you to think hard about the consequences of onerous restrictions that are not well thought out. We and many other sailors have been active in this community, purchasing homes, paying taxes, contributing to charities, serving on town committees, and adding to the fabric of the community. We never would have considered settling in this town if the ordinance as proposed was in effect. We would have kept on sailing right past the town. We wouldn't have stopped. There has been a lot of pressure from outside developers lately to abandon the town's motto of cool, coastal, and far from ordinary. Don't let this ordinance put another nail in that coffin. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We'd like to thank you and Penny for submitting. We did acknowledge receiving your email at 12:01 this afternoon. And thank you for coming and publicly addressing your concern as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else in regards to proposed ordinance 2022-12? Okay, with that, we're moving on to the next. We have ordinance 2022-13, an ordinance amending the Town of Port Royal Code ordinances to add Chapter 17, Article 3, titled Construction of Utilities and Other Public Works Within Street Right-of-Ways and Easement, and other matters related thereto. Van?
Yeah, we are in the process of updating the franchise agreement with Comcast, and one of the things the lawyer suggested was an update to the encroachment permit section of our code, and that's what this ordinance does in terms of requiring the encroachment permit and stipulating what exactly has to be in the permit request. I think NOAA helped structure a lot of that language.
Thank you. And of course, if you all may have seen some of the utility that was being laid in the town of Port Royal, and it came to an abrupt stop. Well, this ordinance actually addresses those types of concerns moving forward in the future. You know, therefore giving them, you know, the legal authorization to conduct that type of work. And also, because of course they did not go through the town for approval on that initially, so that's what this ordinance covers. Any questions from the public? Okay, with that being said, we're going to come to the close of the public hearing and move directly into our monthly workshop. Okay, now, again, thank you all for coming. First order of business is a presentation from Ian Scott, the president of the Beaufort Chambers.
Councilmember Owen, thank you so much. Councilmember Ashmore, Councilmember Phillips.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, forgive me. Thank you all for the invitation to be here. We are with the town of Port Royal's support, as well as the financial and engagements from the Beaufort County, the city of Beaufort, and the state of South Carolina. Really pleased to be embarking on a project that I believe has the opportunity to make a positive impact on the entire region for generations. And we're dubbed that the Defense Community Partnership Project. And there is a slide deck. We'll try to go through this somewhat briefly, but I'm happy to answer additional questions and do want to make sure that we keep the town leadership and constituents up to date throughout progress. So real quick, here's the back. We're going to cover our background, our problem statement. This work is all centered around the Naval Hospital. We'll give you some sense of what the property opportunities are there, share our approach and next steps, and then have a little bit of time for questions. That's all down to your discretion. I know you have a busy agenda. So quick background, the Defense Health Agency is taking over responsibility for all active duty medical service provision. This will change the way both Navy medicine, Army, Air Force all deliver health care to the uniform wearing warfighter. It also impacts dependents, veterans, and families. So there's a big change up that's been underway for 3 successive administrations, both Democrat and Republican, and is pretty well ensconced in the federal landscape. This will have impacts on the way services are delivered going forward at the Naval Hospital. We know factually that the Naval Hospital plans to build an ambulatory care clinic or an outpatient care clinic at the air station and one aboard Parris Island. The one aboard the air station is programmed out. That's in the fiscal year, currently in the fiscal year 25 budget. The one for Parris Island's a little bit further out, fiscal year 27 budget. We also know that the Department of Veterans Affairs is currently shopping for real estate to build a 100,000 square foot new facility within northern Beaufort County that will replace the facility that's currently located at Naval Hospital Beaufort in the hospital building. These things in confluence mean that the bulk of the activity that currently happens aboard Naval Hospital Beaufort right here in the town of Port Royal will be handled elsewhere within our region over the coming decade. And that's a thing we're pretty confident about. What is less clear is what will happen at Naval Hospital Beaufort in the future, and that's what we're hoping to address. So if there's one punchline from this slide, I know we're live and we're in public, the one punchline here is our military presence in this region is level or growing. We have the opportunity to have brand new facilities to better serve service members and their families that are here in the Beaufort region in brand new facilities to better execute those missions. And there's a good chance we'll be doing that on 2 bases instead of on 3, potentially over the coming decade. We have run this to ground through multiple channels, including with the Department of the Navy, and are confident that they do not have any published or non-published plans that we're aware of for what future uses of that site could be, and we believe they are actively receptive to input from the community. And that's what we're looking to gather through the process I'm going to lay out over the next couple of slides. So the problem statement as we've defined it, and these are some dense slides, they're yours, and I'm happy to get offline briefings with anybody who wants to dig deeper. But here's what we're trying to do. Proactively put forward and socialize a long-range community-driven plan for the highest best use for the Naval Hospital Beaufort property. That property is federally owned property. We don't get to tell the federal government what they can do or not do with that property, but we do have an opportunity to suggest outcomes that would earn community support, and that's what we're trying to do through this process. Real quick background. We are not under a BRAC, and people in this community are familiar with a BRAC. We understand what that acronym means. There has not been a BRAC authorized by the Congress of the United States since 2005. And that's not for lack of interest among leadership in the Pentagon. They would like to reduce their footprint, to invest more money in technology modernization, new weapon systems, and personnel. But we are not under a BRAC. We don't foresee a BRAC. That doesn't mean that since 2005 there hasn't been significant changes to bases. There have been. Bases have been effectively mothballed. Others have been handled in other ways. Two of those methods are declaring property either excess or underutilized. In the next slide, I'll briefly go through what those two things mean. If a property is defined as excess, there's a very prescriptive way for handling it. This is the weightiest slide there is out there. Forgive me for the amount of data that's on here. But the big point here is if a property is defined as excess, as unneeded for the purpose that it currently has, it goes through this process, through the GSA, General Services Administration of the federal government. A local government, federal transfers first, then local government, then negotiated sale, then public sale. Those are the steps. There's a very rigorous method to doing it, but basically the first step being federal transfer, any other federal agency would have a crack at land that was declared excess. The next slide will share what happens if a property might be declared underutilized. So this means we might have future uses for it, but we're not exactly sure what we're doing with it right now, or it's not living up to its full potential. Underutilized offers a ton of flexibility. Instead of putting it in Washington, D.C., decisions are made locally. There's some short and long-term opportunities. Again, a lot more authority at the either local installation or sector level. And there's opportunities for adaptive reuse that advance other military missions and purposes without transferring the ownership of the land. And we see some interesting opportunities here, and there are examples where that land can become taxable even without transferring ownership. Important to note for folks here in the town of Port Royal. There are multiple tool options, memorandum of understanding, enhanced use lease, land swaps. There's a lot of flexibility should the Navy decide to declare that property underutilized in the future, given investment in brand new facilities to support the existing missions here in the community. We think there's some real opportunities there, and we think if we do the homework in advance and present some of those options to the Navy, we may have a chance to identify some clear winners that are triple wins. Wins for the federal government, wins for our local military, and wins for the community and everybody living here. And that's what we're endeavoring to do. We'll keep rolling on the slides. What we've done is retain the services of Matrix Design Group. They are a military-focused, staffed by all former military installation commanders, planners, engineers. They're a large national outfit, and they've done multiple examples of the work I'm describing to you all in the past at other military installations. So they've got a track record of success. This is just a little bit about them, their size, their credentials. We did an exhaustive RFP process. We had 11 bids from local and national firms, and the Military Enhancement Committee of the Chamber, of which the town has an appointee, selected the Matrix Design Group. We've been working with them for over a year on a couple of other projects and have been very pleased with their engagement level and the intel we get from them. So the outline of the work we're undertaking, starting really, we're already underway. First is the discovery. That'll be all the way through. Most of the stuff we're trying to piece parcels of information together and build a comprehensive narrative and keep fact-checking that. So we'll have to keep doing that both with DHA, the Veterans Affairs, the Department of the Navy, and other contacts within the Pentagon and in our political delegation federally up in D.C. So next up, in addition to discovery, visioning, and that's where we really need a lot of input, and we're going to start that later on this month. We'll host an in-person workshop for stakeholders and members of the community to come share some ideas. There's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities for what could happen there that augments the missions existing in our region, healthcare facilities, education facilities, employment opportunities for spouses. I was just at a conference for military communities, literally just came back yesterday from that conference. Housing and spousal employment were the two big themes that were on display from base commanders and Pentagon leadership throughout. Like every other employer, they are looking to retain talent in the armed services, ensuring that folks have great community support and that military spouses have great jobs is a real big key for retaining military talent and making sure that our community can be a community of choice for Marines and Navy service members in the future. We need to make sure we've got great jobs for those members' spouses when they're here in our community. So spousal employment could be an opportunity. But defining our vision, that's where we get to decide what things we'd like to see as a community. And I'm emphasizing community here. We're merely the facilitators in this effort, but looking to get input from you all and from constituents across the community. So after that, once we get a bunch of input, keep all options on the table. All options means could be another military mission, could be some other federal agency employment opportunity, could be one of those enhanced use leases where we identify some kind of use that supports our other military bases here in the region. A lot of different things out on the table. From there, we'll narrow those into a couple different courses of action, outline what those steps look like, do a SWOT analysis on each one of those. And we're working fast. We're going to try to get the initial work done on those initial courses of action by the end of this calendar year. We are pushing hard to get to an April completion date for at least the first phase of this project, primarily so that we're ready before the next congressional budgeting cycle, should we need to go to our delegation and ask for support to advance any of the efforts that come out of this visioning session. So once we've defined those initial courses of action, we'll need to review them. We'll need some time. That's where we get to come back to you all and shop those options, socialize them further, and understand what things the town's interested in. We're going to need your involvement the whole way through, obviously, but before we go speak to folks at the Navy and speak to our congressional delegation, we want to make sure we're coming with broad-based buy-in. So there's a period of review built in, and then we move into implementation. And that's really where we try to go lay out the action plan to do this work. I've laid out a tight time frame. This is not the end of the work. It's really the beginning of the work. This is the plan for the beginning. We'll have a lot to go beyond this, and it probably won't all go exactly as we lay it out on a map. The important part in my mind is to initiate. We know that there will be changes to the mission set at Naval Hospital Beaufort. We have a window of opportunity right now to go define what things the community might want to see and sell those concepts. And that's really what we're trying to do in this engagement. We have established a task force. The town has an appointee on that task force. There are 5 voting members, one from the town, one from the city of Beaufort, one from Beaufort County, one by the chamber, and one by the Military Enhancement Committee. And I know your appointee to that, or at least your preliminary appointee to that, is Greg Shelton, who's here in the room. We're really happy to have his engagement and broader engagement from town leadership in this whole process. I think that wraps it about up, but we are slated for a first visioning workshop on November 16th. I'm working hard to get details out about that. Those will come later this week, but we'll be bringing in subject matter experts, community members, folks like yourselves, hopefully if you're available on that day. If you're not available on that day, we'll have other opportunities. We want to gather a lot of input. All ideas at this stage are welcome, and we got to see what can actually pencil out and be a credible proposal up to the Navy. And I'll welcome any questions.
Ian, you so eloquently captured or recapped. I was fortunate to have attended the Defense Community Partnership Project back on September 22nd when it was presented by Matrix Zach. And you've covered all of those items also, and eloquently. And just wanted to reiterate also, as I said, there is no BRAC. And again, for those of you that don't know what BRAC is, it's the Base Realignment and Closure. There is no BRAC currently imposed at the Naval Hospital. And also the Naval Hospital will also serve as an ambulatory care and not fully closing. So, you know.
I'm really, really glad you restated both of those points. You're absolutely correct. There is no change of action currently for the Naval Hospital. They are, all systems go, serving to defend this nation by helping recruit and train Marines, recruit and train F-35 pilots. They are executing their mission effectively right now. That said, we know that they are building brand-new facilities. That's a good thing for our community.
For Beaufort County, yes.
Good thing for reinvestment, good thing for our community. It's a good thing for the long-term success of all of our missions. We know that the design life of the Naval Hospital is 70 years, and we also know that it's celebrating its 70th birthday coming up. So, you know, there's reasons for us to begin the planning right now to make sure that we have not only a seat at the table, but an opportunity to help steer the course of future decisions that may get made with that federally owned property there. We think we've got a ton of tools in the toolbox to work with, and I think we've got a partner that's proven successful doing this work in the past. We're leading with the military at the front. That's the tent pole. $2.5 billion and over 20,000 direct jobs supported. It's so critical for the economy of this region to ensure that the long-term success of all the military missions in the region. That is the guiding light, the front and center opportunity here. We want to make sure that the evolution of what happens at that installation augments everything else that we have in the region related to the military and reflects the values, priorities, and goals that we have as a town and as a broader region.
And this is the county's way of taking a proactive initiative to be prepared. Right. Councilman Phillips?
What year did you say that they're gonna break ground on the ambulatory care center at the air station?
So breaking ground is to be determined.
Okay.
That's one of the areas we may need to exert a little bit of political influence to make sure that it gets held in a budget. There's lots of different things that go into building a military budget, and facilities often get pushed out,
Gotcha.
particularly when nobody's pushing for them. So if we've got a good idea of a future use, we have a better opportunity to go push for those MILCON dollars earlier.
And when they designate an installation as either excess or underutilized, when does that happen? Does something have to close before that happens, or
They're not obligated to do either.
Okay.
So there's no forcing function beyond us trying to be good stewards of our community, you all being good stewards of this community, reading the tea leaves accurately, and looking for a way to enhance what we already have as opposed to wait and be told what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say thank you for that. I thank y'all for taking the leadership role in this. I love when we can be proactive and not reactive. And so that's great. And just a quick shout out to Ian and his team at the Chamber. They just were awarded Best in South Carolina by the Carolinas Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. So that's cool.
It's a privilege to serve our 525 members across the region, from Fripp Island to Yemassee, and many right here in the town of Port Royal. We're honored to get to do the work and humbled when our peers recognize us. Thank you for that.
Well, we appreciate what you do also. Councilman Ashmore?
Yeah, I just got 4 points. I think earlier you said you would share this PowerPoint with us so we can kind of get down into it.
You already have it.
Okay, cool. Next thing, can you share some examples of Matrix Design Group, some of the work they've done so we can look at that? I noticed there were a lot of dots all over the map, but I'd like to maybe see some of that.
Absolutely. And I'll give you the long version of this presentation. It's got a couple of specific examples that are, every base is unique, every base is distinct, and their projects are different. But there's a couple of places where they've worked, and in a lot of ways, very similar environment to what we're trying to do.
And then you talked about hosting a public workshop, and I know the details to be worked out I'd say we host that here in Port Royal. To me, it'd be a great spot to do it,
Love to do it here.
okay?
The base is located here.
And then, you know, as we're visiting this, and I look at Greg, because I might not make the November 16th meeting, but I hope that we consider, when we're naming the project, Naval Hospital Beaufort, maybe put hyphen Port Royal, or somehow incorporate the town's name, because it's truly within the town's boundaries. I know it's in Beaufort County. We're proud of Port Royal, and I like to see as visioning going forward, if we can somehow word craft or wordsmith, whatever the term is, Port Royal into the name of the project.
And, you know,
At
I
least a consideration.
understood, and, you know, I just want to emphasize the regional significance of this too. It's certainly a Port Royal project.
Understood.
And I think it has impact that extends for,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, I was interested to learn 10,000 people wake up in Bluffton or Hilton Head and drive to our part of the county to work every day, and the majority of them are either going to the air station or to Paris Island or to the Naval Hospital. So this is a county-wide impact opportunity. We are a heavily military-focused county, so ensuring. that-
Absolutely, 100%.
Yep.
So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much, and I appreciate the presentation. Well done.
Absolutely.
Ian, again, thank you for your presentation, and again, congratulations to you and your team for the outstanding job that you do here for Beaufort County.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on. Thank you all. Next, presentation by Greg Shelton.
Good evening, Mr. Owens, Pro Tem, and Council. Did I get that right? I'm going to talk to you tonight about Music from the Manger. One of the reasons why we want to make this proposal to Port Royal, kind of following Councilman Ashcroft's comment about Port Royal being in the name of what we do. And so one of the things that we want to do is kind of refresh how we got here with this whole process of Music from the Manger. It started at Port Royal Music Academy, just kind of a thoughtful conversation about how do we raise money for needy charities in our community of Port Royal. And one of the things that we came up with last year was to kind of showcase one of the Port Royal residents, somebody who just recorded her first CD, Fill of Hope, and that was Liz Mandel, who now goes by the name of Liz Jane and her band here in Port Royal. So we kind of try to figure it out, how would we produce something like that? And clearly, the magnitude of what took place between September and December of last year was a lot more, I think, than we anticipated. And so one of the things that I thought was really important is that we talked about the fact that we sold 250 seats last year. And we actually presented a check over $6,000 to Kappa, who was our charity last year that we identified. We built a team of over 20 volunteers. That might not sound like a lot, but anybody that's ever been in that abandoned building across the street, the warehouse, will appreciate the fact that we turned that into a place where 250 people could come and have a seat and enjoy that show. There were 28 individual businesses that sponsored that performance last year. There were over 10 different vendors that ultimately signed up and presented their shops and wares outside of the building. And I think we had 2 different food trucks that signed up. Not a lot, but I mean, you got to realize as one of the first efforts to do this, they didn't know what they were going to get into. One of the things we had a lot of fun with last year, and I'll make it really quick, is the guy that used to be the lighting director for the Rolling Stones lives in Port Royal. And he's the guy that we call the Wizard, who did all of that lighting last year. And the best part about it was that after he did everything and we asked him for an invoice and got his invoice, it was 0, because he also has a child that basically came from Kappa. We had a lot of help from the fire department. We had to get a sign-off for the fire department to satisfy Safe Harbor's need, because in the middle of everything that we did. It went from Grey Ghost to Safe Harbor. Personalities changed, priorities changed, attitudes changed. So we had the fire department, police department with their help. Literally, the fire department showed up and they were gonna hose down the building for us, which was pretty cool. So other things that we did, and they're really important that we understand the community came together to make this happen. We had people that literally spent 4 hours on the roof of that building that did not belong to either Port Royal or to us, repairing the skylights, because it seemed like the more that we put into the building to clean it up, there was an element in town that was convinced that they needed to break those skylights and put holes in the roof. So we had people on the roof. We repaired cracked cement around the building to satisfy some of the needs of Safe Harbor. We installed tarps around the openings of all of those various places that used to have a door. We put tarps up. Somebody came in and literally installed black tarps, and most everybody that was in that audience that night never knew it was there. The idea of the tarps was if we had bad weather that night, we could drop the tarps and basically continue on. Set design, chair rentals. We had 300 chair rentals that we had to bring in. Porta-johns. I never rented a porta-john in my life before until last year, and I was blown away with how much that cost. We had painters come in, 21 Christmas trees that were donated, and Elizabeth Smith back there worked with the farmer who actually, when we went in to get the trees, was really impressed by the fact that we were doing this kind of a thing in Port Royal. Electricians that came in and made all of those electrical boxes outside of the warehouse live again so that we can actually do things inside of the building. So that was the lighting. The band had to connect to something and all of the other services that we were doing. We had to go to marketing and advertising. That was something that was really interesting because the first real press that we had was from the Island Packet. And then Beaufort Lifestyle did a whole article about the show and the people that were putting it together. We had TV, radio. We did a commercial on Hilton Head TV. We did a lot of radio advertising, Island Packet and all of that. So at the end of the day, we really couldn't determine whether any of the PR that we were getting from radio, TV, and anything else really made any difference in ticket sales, and that was really what we were trying to impact so that we could raise more money for our designated charity. This year, we're working with a group in Beaufort called the Designated Marketing Organization, who's really changing our approach and how we're marketing Music from the Manger 22. Social media is going to be a big focus. Matter of fact, we were just approving 2 ads. We just approved 2 ads this morning that you'll start to see on Facebook and other social media contacts. At the next slide, please. So why are we here? We want to propose putting Port Royal as the prime lead into that show. So Music from the Manger right now is something that essentially comes from Port Royal Music Academy. This year, they have a lesser role than what we are doing kind of privately. And so we've been talking over the course of the past year is, should this be an annual event? And this year, we're doing Music from the Manger at the YMCA. They've agreed to host it there, and we have to deal with the fact that last year we had this beautiful opening. You know, the sun was setting. We had a manger that we had built, and everybody kind of sat in front of that as the performance went on. We have a lot of traction. We didn't get a lot of traction outside of Port Royal last year, but we're working with the designated marketing organization to handle some of that for us and bring in some of the folks outside of Port Royal. Production costs were tightly managed last year because we didn't know what we were going to get in terms of sales. So we think that our goal this year is to increase ticket sales from 250 to about 300. And the big item for us in terms of making it through all of the production costs and everything is to increase the number of sponsors that we get. And so, next slide, please. Our proposal is to put Port Royal as prime sponsor that we're asking for right now, in that this would be a Port Royal event every year. However, it's named Port Royal Music from the Manger, Musical Manger, or whatever we come to. We would then have the input of the town in terms of what we're doing and who's going to be there and how the show goes. Broaden the show to add other brand names to it so that if Liz Jane is not available next year to perform, there's other performers that we can attract to bring in to the town. Continue to use the designated marketing group from Beaufort. They've been very helpful so far this year. And use the show as a seasonal attraction to bring more people into Port Royal as a visitor. The proposal right now is we're asking that council approve that Music from the Manger become a hallmark event for Port Royal, that the event would be renamed Port Royal Music something, whatever you all would want us to do that with. Port Royal Music from the Manger becomes a yearly event, and it's produced within the town of Port Royal. And as I mentioned earlier, this year, what we're doing with the show is the recipient of proceeds of the show is the YMCA Scholarship Program. And as I said, YMCA is hosting us within their building. And also the reception that we did last year on Friday night, it was a 3-day event, but we're doing everything in one night. The reception this year is going to be at Springer. And for those of you that have already been at Springer, they probably have got the coolest bar I've ever seen in Port Royal. I don't know what those people do at night, but they have got a big bar. We respectfully request that Port Royal help us promote this event as a gold sponsor with the amount that we indicate up there with $10,000 sponsorship to help us cover the cost of the program this year. And thank you.
What's the date of this year's event?
It's December 17th,
December 17th.
7:30.
Thank you, Greg, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Certainly last year was very, very successful. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and we're hoping to build upon that this year. And I'm sure the council will be having further discussion in regards to your recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, moving on, we will be conducting interviews for various board positions. And the first that we have, actually, we will be interviewing Greg Shelton, who's submitted his application for the Defense Community Partnership Task Force. That's what Ian just talked about. And Greg has shown interest in wanting to represent the town of Port Royal on that task force. Okay, each of you, council members, you have a copy of his resume in your packet.
Yes.
We're gonna go ahead and yield briefly, 3 minutes max, for you to sell yourself as to why you're interested in this, serving in this
Okay.
capacity.
I was first introduced to this entire project by Dick Stewart, who asked me to take a look at getting involved in repurposing the Naval Hospital as a veterans outpatient clinic. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is that we have 25,000 veterans in Beaufort County. And every one of those veterans, if they have to go outside, of Beaufort County in order to receive VA services at the hospital in Charleston. That's a 72-mile trip, and then you have about anywhere from 45 minutes plus to find a parking space once you get there. If you don't go to Charleston, veterans in Beaufort County then have to go to Savannah for other types of treatment or medical services. Again, it's a long drive to get there, not crazy long, but it's a long drive. So I kind of looked at the fact that when I was at Parris Island as a Marine, one of the things that we always constantly heard is if you were injured, don't worry about it, you can go to Beaufort Naval Hospital. Although there was a rumor that if you went to Beaufort Naval Hospital, you weren't coming back to Parris Island. But the other side of it was that it was a close-by facility for all of us that needed it at the time that we were here. It has also been here since 1947, so it is over 70 years old. But it served the purpose that it was intended to for both active military and now as veterans. There's 2 floors that serve veterans in terms of lab work and things of that nature, 4th floor and the 2nd floor. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for us to really think hard about what we do with that facility, what we do with that property, where the priorities need to be in terms of whether the land is available for land swaps, as you saw up there, or we pay attention to the fact that those 25,000 veterans have a place to go rather than the kind of travel that we have to do now. Some of them have actually had to go up to Atlanta when there's been an overflow, and that's a 5-hour drive. So I think my background in terms of dealing with these types of situations in business, again, with 40 years or so at a senior executive level of companies, permits me or gives me at least the background to be involved in this in terms of a thoughtful and intellectual way of arriving at a solution that's best for Port Royal. I've already started that Port Royal tagline, by the way. Yeah. We went to that original defense community meeting a few weeks ago, about 3-4 weeks ago, and I thought that was a good presentation. You got a snapshot of it here today, but I think I can represent Port Royal as a veteran and also as a designated member of Port Royal right now with economic development, because that's the other hat that I wear when we look at what's going on with this property.
Councilman Ashmore, any questions?
No, I just a comment or a couple comments. Everything that you've been tasked to do, you've done well, and I think you will
Thank you.
continue to do this well. I think in that environment, the way you handle yourself around those people, I think you can handle yourself very well, because there's some, high-ranking military people, and there's some high, business people in there, and I don't think you would back down, and I think you would keep Port Royal's best interest at heart and continue to push for that. So I think you could handle yourself well in that arena, and I
Thank you.
definitely would support you in that capacity.
Yeah, I've been in those conversations with some of those people already.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you got some experience there, so I think you do well.
Thank you. Councilman Phelps?
No, just thank you for stepping up to serve again. I like the fact that you're on the development operation as well, and I think it makes sense that though, having somebody that's in both those rooms, kind of, the people on both sides. So I think
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for your service, your military service, and thank you for your willingness to also to want to represent us. Final decision or action will not be taken until next week's at our official business meeting. So we will see you next week.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything. Well done.
Next, we
Good luck.
will have Dixie Lanier, Housing Trust. Thank you, Dixie, for your willingness to serve as a representative on the Housing Trust. This is an initiative that is being put together between Beaufort and Jasper counties, includes Hilton Head, Bluffton, Hardyville, Ridgeland, Port Royal, Yamasee, and the city of Beaufort. You're expressing interest in wanting to be our representative to serve on the Housing Trust Task Force. So I'm going to yield the floor to you and tell us and tell the community why you're interested in serving in this capacity.
Of course. First of all, thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. I appreciate your consideration for the Regional Housing Trust Fund. First, I'm a local Beaufortonian, born and raised. My grandparents were here due to the military as well, so I have a great appreciation and understanding of their importance in the area. In addition to that, I'm a single mom. I moved back to Beaufort about 6 years ago, and I was in the boat that many of our team members and constituents, they also had struggles finding housing. I offer a very unique perspective because I've worked in housing marketing communication for the last 20 years on a national level and locally with many of the major developers that participate in the Military Housing Privatization Initiative, including Lend-Lease, Balfour Beatty Investments, as well as Tri-Command Communities or Atlanta Marine Corps Communities before they rebranded. I have a really great understanding of the local housing market, everything from the real estate to the military housing and how their basic allowance for housing and increases affects the local community. In addition to that, my experience with housing locally, as I mentioned, Atlanta Marine Corps Communities offers a different perspective that you're gonna have maybe from other members. From marketing communications, doing studies within the area, defining target markets, I would be able to offer my expertise in communication and some of the initiatives and key tasks that the board seems that they would be required to do and perform. So I thank you for your consideration, and I hope you consider me.
Great, and thank you. And there were several criterias that had to be met, and this task force, or this, the representative, does not consist of any elected officials. And so we're going to thank you for your willingness and also meeting those criterias as well. Councilman Ashmore, any questions?
No, Dixie, I've told you before, thank you for your willingness to serve the community. You and I have had several conversations about this position, and I can't think of a better person to slot in that role with your experience and with your background and with your ties to the community. So I definitely support you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilman Phillips?
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, Dixie, and we will be taking action on your interests for next week.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Council. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem.
Thank you. Next, we will have Marcy Roy for the Design and Review Board. Hi, Marcy, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Wonderful. Well, we're gonna yield the floor to you and tell us why.
All right, thank
You're
you
interested
for
in serving.
considering me for the Design Review Board. I'm really excited about it. And I'm also new to Port Royal, so you probably
Well, welcome. You know.
have no idea who I am and what I'm about. So I thought I'd give you a little background. I was born and raised in a very small community in southwestern Minnesota. I graduated and became a librarian for special services and for the Army in Frankfurt. I went back to school, got into computers, and worked for IBM and CSC, US Bank, Wells Fargo, and I managed large projects and managed multiple people. So in other words, I'm capable. I retired and I got out a spreadsheet and I started looking around because in Minneapolis, we have a real problem with crime. It's cold there, and I wanted to get away from the cold. And I just wanted to come to the southeast, but I wanted to experience the different places. So I tried different towns, and I got to Port Royal, and I fell in love with it. I love the small town feel. I love the small town cottages. And, you know, you walk down the street and everybody says hi. I love it here, and I want to contribute. I'm working with Greg and Liz on Music in the Manger. I'm one of 3 ladies that are doing the tech work for that. I'm graduating Saturday from the Master Garden program, and so I'll be doing volunteer work for that. So I would like, oh, and then you probably are wondering why the Design Review Board. I love architecture. I renovate a house about every 5 years. I like arts and crafts. I like Mission. I like Victorian. I feel like I'm coming home to something when I walk into a house like that. And that's how I feel when I see all these houses in Port Royal. And I know that there's going to be a lot of changes coming to Port Royal because of Safe Harbor, because Bluffton and Hilton Head are getting built out, and then things are coming. But I would like to work with the town to make sure it remains unique and like a small town. And so that's where I'm at.
You definitely hit the trail running hard, so we thank you for your willingness to serve. Councilman Phillips?
No, thank you for your willingness to serve, and just ask that if elected on the board, you just rely on the code and look to
Yes.
it for your guidance. It's
And I'd be
there- it's
looking
there
to
for a
Noah
reason.
for help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there to be for a tool, so just,
Thanks.
use it, yes, thank you.
Councilman Ashmore?
Who's rotating off the board?
Yes, all
Number
right.
one. Rob Merchant has reached the end of his limit, so,
Okay.
his term limit, so he'll be rotating off. And I don't know if he's willing to serve somewhere else right now, so.
No, that's fine. I would just, it's a pivotal time in Port Royal's, you know, time. And you kind of focused on, I renovate houses now and stuff. We're looking at a lot of commercial stuff. Kevin hit the nail on the head with the code, follow the book. It's always there. We can always go to the book and all that stuff. Thank you for your willingness to serve the community, and welcome to Port Royal.
Well,
Stick
thank you
around,
very
we'll find
much.
more things for you to do.
I'll be here. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, these are 2-year terms, correct?
Yes.
2-year terms. Okay, again, to each of the applicants, we want to thank you for your unselfishness and putting service above self. And so again, we thank you for your interest in wanting to make a difference here in the town of Port Royal for our citizens and for yourself as well. So thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I love to see the quality of applicants we get to these boards, because I know in the past, there've been times when people said, you're not gonna get quality people. Well, tonight, I feel like we knocked a home run. 3 quality people serving boards in the community. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you again. Okay, and we're going to continue on with the agenda. Now we're going to have the council briefing from town manager.
Yeah, let's start with the redevelopment commission. We had a presentation from Trip Muldrow with which we will have next week. And based upon their interactions with owner developers of properties along the corridor, as well as that presentation, they're probably going to ask that council consider the creation of a district that would kind of have oversight for properties that would be redeveloped along the corridor. They're probably going to come back with some specifics. Obviously, what they're looking for is some to manage expectations in terms of when permits could be turned around, as well as they really want to be able to delineate what the specifics of how those properties could be redeveloped. So we'll probably come up with a formal recommendation, which I will forward to council, kind of like the redevelopment incentive program that y'all are going to consider as well. Okay. Next item is the historic Port Royal Foundation. In your folder, I included a submittal from HPRF. They are looking at some expansion opportunities. They are kind of outgrowing their space, so they have a potential option on some property that they are considering. I don't want to get into too many specifics until they want to come and make a presentation with y'all. I just wanted to put that out in front of you so you're understanding what they're doing. They think there's some opportunities to do some partnerships, and they've kind of been serving in a kind of an unofficial capacity as a visitor center for us, and so there's some opportunities to enhance that. Housing Regional Trust. I did include the questionnaire from Community Works in your folder. If you get an opportunity, please take a look at it, provide me some feedback. I'll be working with our staff to maybe put some answers together on that. Those are some things that they want pieced together from us based upon our comp plan and some other planning documents. So,
Is there a deadline on that, or is that just as soon as
I'm
possible?
not sure if there actually is. I do know that we have a kickoff meeting. We're kind of doodle surveying now to try to come up with some dates.
Okay.
So if you could take a look at that in the next week or so, I'd appreciate it. I'm gonna bounce to you wanna do a little thing on the tree protection ordinance at this point? In your folders, you do have kind of a draft of what NOAA has put together. I know that we're looking forward to updating the ordinance. There are some things in there, it's modeled on the Hilton Head ordinance at this time. We're getting some additional feedback. I will say this, the Hilton Head ordinance is very technical, and they have a lot of staff that's dedicated to just handling trees. We do not have that. So there will be some limitations, but I'll defer to Noah real quickly.
Yeah, I'll just hit the highlights
If you
for,
want, you may want to go up there.
should I come up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Are
Alrighty.
we able to put that up on the screen for the public?
Yeah, let's see. Give me a sec.
So the highlights I'd like to touch upon with y'all, that's kind of just phase one of what I want to tell you about, and then I'll kind of fill you in on where we'll go from here. So some of the major things that have come out of the work that we've done with this small task force over the last, I guess, 2 months at this point. The first is that we drafted a purpose and intent section to go at the beginning of this ordinance, so there'll be kind of a narrative of why basically why we protect our trees in the town of Port Royal that doesn't currently exist in our ordinance, putting emphasis on, you know, our natural heritage and things like that, so that a developer walks in and the first thing they see in our ordinance is the what people might call the floofy language, but it really is the reason that we love our trees. So that's first. Just overall, the protections on specimen and landmark trees in the town will be tightened through this. One of the things that is a big one, any paving or soil compaction within the drip line of a tree, the area that you'd stand under so you don't get dripped on, I guess, I don't know. That will.
The line is
yeah.
if the plant is out to the edge,
Exactly.
it kind of drips right
Yeah.
there.
So there'll be a percentage limit on the amount of pavement or soil compaction that can happen within the drip line of a tree, as well as tightening up the reasons for removal that we can use to make them more in the public interest and less in the private interest. We will also be expanding the list of species that are protected. That'll be broken down into 4 categories based on their value. So, you know, a live oak would be a broad-leaved evergreen overstory tree, so that gets the full value. And then you might see half that value is for evergreen cone-bearing trees, and then ornamentals are down at the quarter of the value of the live oaks. And we can use those categories to come up with fee amounts that are justifiable and pack more of a punch. It also increases requirements for pre-development and as well as inspections for post-development. So some of those things would include underbrushing permits and an inspection to determine what reasonably needs to be underbrushed pre-development to survey the site and do the work that's required on site there before the application is submitted to the town. The tree surveys will need to be verified by a certified arborist for these site development projects, because if you do a survey with 1,000 trees on a site, a land surveyor can do their best and flip through a book to try and identify correctly every species on that site. But it's largely hit or miss with surveyors, and we want to ensure that we're not missing anything important there. And then finally, the way this will be framed is that a fee in lieu, aka paying instead of planting, will be a last resort instead of the first option presented if you can't save the trees on site. So what that means is there will be 12 pages of ordinance explaining all the steps that you have to take first, and if you cannot meet any of those, then we can explore a mitigation fee, and that mitigation fee will be based on a cost estimate from a nursery that will, you know, since they cannot plant this many trees, here's the actual cost of each of those trees that cannot be planted, and we'll charge that way. So that's kind of the themes of what's changing here, and I'll just touch again on what Van mentioned. There is a lot in this first draft that is very technical. I have tried to understand some of the language around aggregate caliper inches on a development site, and when I could not understand, I deferred to the Coastal Conservation League and Michael Murphy, both of whom could also not explain to me what those things meant. So we're going to continue to work on that. We worked this morning on the first half of this ordinance to start trimming down and making this language more concise and better to implement, and I think we'll get there before second reading for sure, and public hearing as well. So we'll give people a good chance to review this and make comment prior to December.
Thank you for your work. I know it involves a lot, and thank you for your effort and what you've done thus far. Any questions for Noah?
I just a comment. Thank you. Everything you said, I echo that. You know, we got to find a way to get tough on this. You know, put them out on the side of the road with a sandwich board out here with the light saying, I cut down a tree, I shouldn't have. I don't know what you do. We got to put teeth in it. And then, I don't know if you keep a list or something of people that frequently push the limit or violate it or something, and just have some hard discussions with them, developers, whoever it is.
So I think
Said you've been
Part of-
warned multiple times.
Yeah.
Or no, it shouldn't be multiple times. You've been warned.
Right. Part of the education in this will be, here's an open call to come to a meeting for developers in the area and builders
Yeah.
in the area, so that we can just discuss it at a roundtable once it's adopted. We do have, they'll be built in anything that's done posed as good faith forestry. Later on, development is proposed on that site. There's anywhere from a 2-year to 5-year moratorium that could be placed on that site if they cut anything down or clear
Yeah.
or bush hog without proper approvals. Or they do get the proper approvals and then they've done it. Their plan is to do something different with that land than they had proposed.
You get these
when they
big
got the
developers, it
approvals.
means nothing to them. They just do whatever they want to. No, we'll just pay the fine.
Well, right.
You gotta do better than that.
Yeah, so
They don't just do what they want to. I just want to clarify that.
I agree.
Okay.
You're right. So that wasn't a well-crafted statement, but it just seems like too many times we gotta put teeth in it.
yeah.
How do we put teeth in it? How do
Right.
we,
And that's, I guess
With
my
not a
closing statement would be
minimal
the
fine that they could say, oh, I'll just pay that and keep it moving, right?
the balance is development friendly within
Right.
within the confines of what we think is appropriate development.
there's a delicate balance there,
So,
that's for
exactly.
sure. We gotta find a way to meet that. Because on one hand, we say, all right, well, you can't go any higher than this, right? We say that. All right, so what does that mean? That means we gotta go this way.
Mm-hmm.
How do we find that delicate balance? Because we don't wanna lose what makes us so special.
sure.
And I think everybody agrees with that.
And I'm sure once we come up with our final product, we will have enough teeth.
Yes. Yeah.
in there.
And I'll walk you through a little bit more of a detailed by section sort of
Right.
Great.
before second reading as well.
Thank you. Spanish
you.
Moss Trail, Spanish Moss Trail.
Nothing new to report at this time. They're still working through permitting, so we're waiting to hear from DOT on the revised drawing.
Okay. Continue safe harbor.
Yeah. This Friday, November 4th, there'll be a meeting with town staff, Corps of Engineers, and other interested parties relative to the channel issues that we've been trying to address. We got beyond the virtual buoy issue, but now we're looking at issues related to the ongoing maintenance of the channel. It has migrated some. There is some maintenance that needs to be done to the channel itself. So we're trying to get as much input as we can from commercial operators, whether it's the swordfish boats that come in here, whether it's from the small cruise ships that we had that were docked here, the ones that are actually, tied up to the wall down at the city of Beaufort. And so we want to present them with an entire picture. So when they're contemplating their budget moving forward, that they will include dollars to address the channel. I think the last time. Yes. The last time I think any money was set aside for that channel may have been in the early 2000s. So it definitely needs some work. I'll keep you posted. I'll give you an overview of that meeting next Wednesday once we finish it. It's not an open to the public meeting. It's a working meeting with the involved parties.
We've had a rotation of one council member to sit in on that.
Well, that's a whole different.
That's a whole different.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a monthly call that we have.
Okay, just wanted to make
Hopefully
sure.
get one of those scheduled again real soon.
Okay.
The next item, we are working with somebody that's interested in the lot between Shell Ring and
Fish camp.
Fish Camp. We have the money that was earmarked for the reconstruction of the dock, and obviously we have money to set aside for reconstruction of the processing facility. So we want to work with whoever that potential owner is, so they understand what their commitments are relative to that property for the co-location of whatever they intend to do with what the development agreement obligates the owner to do in terms of positioning the processing facility, access to the dock, as well as the parking necessary to make it operational. So as those move forward, I will keep you up to date. We're also having discussions as well, and I'll probably bring it to you in December. We were talking about the land swap that involved the property adjacent to Sands Beach Road, which is, I think, 13 lots. And so we wanted to make sure that those potentially were not developed. And so I think we're working out an agreement that will address that. And I think we've got the general framework. We've got the TMS numbers, but I asked them to provide a map to make it a little bit simpler for everybody to follow along.
Well, that processing, that does include a retail component?
Yes, yeah. The original plan that we put together did involve a multiple-story building, with our processing facility and a retail operation included in that first floor. I don't want to touch too much on the Rebo Road corridor study. I just know that we'll have it next week. Tripp will be here to make that presentation to council. So, Sands Beach, I did speak with the county regarding the IGA for the ongoing maintenance. You know, we had the issue that we needed to address relative to ownership. We did work that out with Safe Harbor. The deed has been prepared. We are ready to execute it. However, we're working with the county to make sure that we have that agreement in place for the ongoing maintenance. They did a great job of the most recent maintenance on the floaters itself, as well as the dredging in and around the ramp, coupled with the work that we did on the resurfacing. And the other piece, which you probably saw, which you closed Sand Beach down a little bit this week, is we are replacing that pipe under that section of road that kind of failed. So that pipe is being relined, and we'll be resurfacing the road. But they have windows when they work, tide related, so they're doing what they can. So, but we'll have it open before the weekend. There is still access to the boardwalk adjacent to the parking lot at the dry stack. We worked with Safe Harbor to relocate the fence line so you can get in there and access it that way. All right. Duck Blinds Pond, just want to touch on that real quickly. We have submitted a grant to address the depth of the pond, as well as to install a kind of a separator to capture some of the sediment that's coming in off of the roads adjacent to it that feed that system. We coupled that with, and I may cover this a little bit later under capital projects, but I'll just go ahead and mention it. We submitted that with a drainage improvement plan for the Casablanca area also. So y'all heard some commentary relative to some concerns that were raised. I brought in Michael and Tony. We scoped it out and we submitted it with a package up with the Duck Blinds project. So keep your fingers crossed. And we're still waiting to hear about the other grant we submitted for drainage projects in the Village area, Madrid, West Paris Avenue. So I'll keep you posted. Codes, I just wanted y'all just to read the report. When you get an opportunity, you can see kind of an uptick in the level of activity. We do have 2 code enforcement officers now working pretty much every single day of the
They're
week.
doing a good job.
Doing a good job.
They're cleaning things up.
Absolutely. Shrimp Dock, we have filed a motion asking the court to enter default judgments against the boats that are still there. Obviously, we have to have that in place prior to the court giving us the ability to, or have the authorization to sell those boats. So slow but sure, and we're getting there. And obviously, once those things happen, we can start the process of demolition of the existing dock so that we can reconstruct it and hopefully get some boats back in here. CDBG, the work has started over at Royal Palms. We're excited about that. Materials are on site. The notice of proceed has been issued, and you obviously have seen some equipment out there starting to move stuff around. So that's exciting. Paris Avenue improvements. I got a revised scope of that work today that lays out kind of 3 tiers of improvements that we anticipate, and obviously that first tier is the one related to the CDBG, which does include obviously some sidewalk work, new beds adjacent to or on Paris Avenue, as well as a lighting plan that we anticipate is running parallel to that. We met with Dominion to discuss that, and they've come up with a plan that will be implemented at the same time as that work is being done. I've mentioned federal funds and grants already. Still waiting on the Rural Infrastructure Program grant that we submitted initially. And as I mentioned, we coupled the Casablanca and Duck Blinds grant, so that one's been submitted. Naval Hospital sidewalk, actually making some progress there. The Department of Navy or the Naval Hospital has some interest in moving their walking path, which is adjacent to the fence line. So it's prompted some real discussion and some survey work. Megan Grove with SCDOT is starting to make some progress there. So I will continue to pester her, but I'm pretty pleased with where we're going with that. Capital projects, Brooke has been working with Tony and Michael on the spreadsheet, keeping y'all up to date on what the status is of all of these projects as they move forward. We did discover we had one pipe issue adjacent to the 16th Street wetland. I think Degler's gotten that blown out, so we'll get that water control structure in hopefully shortly. And as you can see, the sidewalks and are moving along real well. So we constantly make some revisions. You've probably seen a lot of cones around town recently, but what we're doing is repairing a lot of those edges before we get the roads ready for complete resurfacing. All right. And one other thing I did want to mention, y'all did receive, I received a letter tonight that you guys got about river winds and some of the things that are going over there, some concerns raised by some of the residents. I do know that the county is looking at, some improvements up along Rebo Road and Ladies Island Drive. I think that may be an opportunity for us to interface with the county and the DOT to express some concerns about, pedestrian mobility through there as well as the movement of cars. It is a challenge because you come off that bridge at 50, 55 miles per hour into a 45 zone, and you've got a significant amount of traffic that stacks in both ways. So it will be difficult, but, we tried to address this years ago, and hopefully by reduced speeds and some other options, but we'll give it a shot again. Okay?
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Van regarding council briefing? Okay, with that, moving forward, we're going to go into our, I guess, the election. What's that?
I don't know if Brooke, you want to cover this, but I'll try to do it real quickly. The city of Beaufort has been working with Beaufort County to maybe handle their municipal elections moving forward. Obviously, the challenges that have come up recently in getting people to volunteer to manage municipal elections. So I think the city reached out, and I'll kind of let you cover that if you'd like.
Good evening. So I was speaking with the city of Beaufort, and it came to our knowledge that they have actually actually it's already changed of where the county is taking full election process. So there's no more municipal election commission. Right now we have a committee of 3, and on election day they're taking time off from work to come out, which can be a little difficult for them. And then 2 days later, they're also taking another day off to go certify. So just knowing that, with working with them for the past few years, I figured that this might be something for us to consider, since the county already does so much of our voter registration process, that this might be something that they would also take on as well.
So will those commissioners be dissolved?
Correct.
So as of past election, thank you for the service and they're done?
Correct.
Okay, so it's all going to be spearheaded by the county?
Correct.
Okay.
But it would require formal action, I believe, by the county. if it
Yes.
does.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Just something to consider. Please, give us some feedback if this is something that you want us to look further into, or if we're happy with the way we're moving right now.
Look into it, brought us more information. I would
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
But this is a polling place next week, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Next Tuesday?
So we'll look more into that and discuss it further.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Brooke,
You're
for
welcome.
that update. Well, review of the agenda for November 9th council's meeting.
All right. We will have, as I mentioned, we will have a presentation from Trip Muldrow. He will give the final report on the Rebo Road corridor study. I think I put a copy of the final draft in your folders if you want to look at it beforehand and maybe come with some questions. The next is an ordinance to provide economic taxation incentives in the town of Port Royal. I'm going to let Brooke cover that.
Pretty long agenda.
All right. So the Redevelopment Commission has recommended that council consider adopting a redevelopment incentive program. This is already existing with the city of Beaufort. So what you see right now is what I've just tweaked for Port Royal. So just a little bit of information. The Port Royal Redevelopment Incentive Program is a program established for the following public purposes: increase the occupancy of vacant commercial buildings, encourage greater development density in Port Royal's downtown, and encourage affordable housing. The program will reimburse property owners for town taxes that are associated with occupancy of a previously vacant building, an owner's development of a downtown property, and a development of an accessory dwelling unit. Reimbursement of these taxes will be promised and paid to encourage property owners to accomplish the program processes. Property owners will need to receive approval by the town to qualify for this program. The town will reimburse a property owner for projected taxes or taxes actually paid to the town for the property qualified under the program. If no event will the town's development incentives to any property owner exceed the town's projections or actual payment made to the town by the property owner. So each time a property owner pays a town property tax, the town will reimburse that property owner the appropriate amount paid to the town, providing that the property maintains its qualification for at least 90 days. Town staff did receive a question about hospitality and accommodation tax rebate, and that cannot legally be considered in this program. This would purely be for taxes paid for that property for the town. Staff is still reviewing this, and we're just looking for input from council and from the public.
Okay. Questions, anyone?
No, like you said, I think it's good that it's puts us on the even playing field with the city of Beaufort, since we butt right up to them. So if you're, looking to develop something, and there's that big, an incentive here, not an incentive there. So would each project have to get approved by council, or is it just if they meet certain criteria, it automatically kicks in?
So approval will go through the town manager or his designee.
Okay. So it is just, so every project, there will be a process to look through everyone. It's not just.
Correct.
Check these boxes, you fit it, you make it.
Right,
Okay,
yes,
it has
they
to-
would
it
have
has get
to-
a stamp of approval.
Yes.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay. Thank you, Brooke.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
You going to our first readings?
Yes, give me 1 second. Normally, what we try to pull up for you to look at is the actual maps associated with these. Just give me a second. So 2022-15 is an ordinance annexing to the town of Port Royal approximately 9.64 acres of real estate located in Beaufort County, described as Beaufort County Tax District 100, map 31, parcels 123 and 38W. These are located at 463 and 471 Paris Island Gateway. Yes.
Okay, so just in case we can't get the maps pulled up, these two parcels within this annexation petition are the Sky City Shopping Center property and the parcel across Oakview Drive that is currently the home of Ricky's Heating and Air. So currently, the use of the Sky City property is storage and a food truck court. The annexation into the town would give the property owner the ability to subdivide out parcels along the highway, which you can actually see addressed already in anticipation of that. Did not know that was a thing yet, but okay. So what you'd be looking at would be 3 out parcels that would basically shield the view of the existing building and the storage use there, and he would look to sell the out parcels. These properties are within the future growth boundary, and there is a contiguous town property just south there. I guess I struggle to.
And the
I
Metro
struggle to
Planning Commission did recommend both the
sorry, yeah.
annexation and the designation of zoning.
Yeah, so, I'm struggling to separate the zoning and the annexation ordinances when I
One owner
talk about this. So-
owns both of them?
No, so, Ricky's parcel was owned by Ricky. The, Sky City property is owned by, Ski Burris. And this was a unanimous, vote for recommendation of
They
the
came
annexation.
to us, is my understanding, right?
Correct.
Do you have any idea what he's looking to do with those 3 parcels at the Sky
No,
City?
he would not, I don't think he would maintain ownership. I think he would subdivide and
He's
sell.
gonna just sell them off. He's not gonna
Yes.
develop anything. He's not gonna.
He would
develop
not
them. He's just
personally,
gonna
no.
sell them. Okay.
Yes. And once we introduce the next ordinance, I can explain a little bit more about the zoning. Unless we want to lump them
Yeah,
together.
just
Van.
let-
All
yeah,
right,
they
okay.
workshop
So,
them together.
okay, cool. So the following ordinance here is linked to this annexation. It is the ordinance to zone the 2 parcels. The Sky City property has been requested a T4 urban center zoning that allows for the out parcels that we would need to have that highway frontage. And then the smaller parcel, the Ricky's parcel, would be T4 neighborhood center open. The idea there being this is a parcel that's within an existing single-family neighborhood. The building there fits the form of the rest of that existing single-family neighborhood. And so the most appropriate zoning there is let's allow this office and partial warehousing use still fitting within the neighborhood center form. So if you have any questions on those zoning districts for these two parcels, I'd be happy to answer questions.
So again, this has been recommended by the Metropolitan,
Yes, so
planning.
there were 4 yays and 1 nay there
Okay.
for the zoning.
Okay, continue,
We'll move on to and that covered both 15 and 16?
15 and 16 with the St. Paul
Yeah,
Church.
so
Uh,
22-17.
Does that include the mobile home park as well?
No,
That's
that's separate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's 22-17 and 18,
Yes.
which is the annexation
Yeah.
of, I'll just read it. Annexing to the town of Port Royal 21.56 acres of real estate located in Beaufort County, described as Beaufort County Tax District 100, map 31, parcels 34, 35, and 36. This is property located at 450 Paris Island Gateway and 65 St. Paul's Church Road. The designation of zoning is covered under 2218. I'll let Noah flesh that out, but they have requested T4 Urban Center. I wonder if we can rotate that. That should be fine. Obviously, within the future growth boundary of the town, and I'll let Noah talk about the properties and the designation of zoning.
So you may have noticed that this property is directly across the street from the other two in the previous petition. They're separate petitions. That's the way we just have to process them as separate petitions because the property owners didn't combine there. So this property, as it stands now, does have contiguity on the north end there. You can see that the access road to the mobile home park actually lines up almost with the entrance to Pinckney Retreat. This kind of both of these petitions that you're hearing are starting to fill in those donut holes that we have, and also kind of start to draw a hard line of where the town's limits are on Paris Island Gateway and where the city and the county unincorporated areas are.
And we have an agreed upon growth boundary with the city of Beaufort in that area.
Mhm.
So we're good there. We're
Correct.
within our growth boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. If you look to the left side, the two parcels to the left here, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So the first large parcel on the highway is an existing mobile home park. The developer who's looking to purchase this property, I believe they have an option to purchase right now, would be looking at multifamily. If you note, the two back parcels are that wetland area, fairly accurate. That's based on county GIS data that's updated frequently. So the reason that they're requesting T4 Urban Center on all three parcels, despite being 3 parcels deep off of the highway, is basically because of that wetland area. So they'd be confined. My understanding would be they would combine for a multifamily site the 3 parcels. They'd be confined to cluster their development farther to the front of the property. And they've also expressed interest in deeding a rent cap on a certain number of units, wherein we would determine what that rental cap is, how long it is. We would work out that agreement with the developer for some design waivers. So that's what they're looking at right now.
There's not a whole lot they can do in that wetlands area there.
There's
right?
nothing they can do in the wetlands, correct, yeah. So this was also recommended unanimously by the MPC, and the zoning designation for this one was also 4 yeas, 1 nay, so.
Again, Jerry, it does, the property does fall within the future growth boundaries of the town.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Do we know how many trailers are there now?
No, I do not.
I would like to, if we could get that info, what's the average rent they're paying, you know?
Yeah.
To live there,
Right,
if they're about to get
evicted.
kicked out, yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's a
then
good point.
and then if we could, like you said, put a cap on a certain percentage of, because it sounds like they want to take the trailers out and build an apartment complex.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
yeah, if we could, look into that with
Yeah,
they're
and
paying.
they're very early stage. This rezoning is critical to
Yeah.
them moving forward. So if they don't acquire the rezoning, we won't probably hear from them again anyway, so. Any questions there?
Let's move into 2022-18.
That's-
Yeah, that was, 18 is the designation of zoning, which is the T. Fordham Center, so I think we're good there.
Okay.
All right, 22-19, ordinance regulating digging holes in the town of Port Royal. This is, obviously, we've seen a recent uptick of very aggressive and deep hole digging at
Yes.
Sands Beach.
Yes.
A lot of, we understand the desire to hunt for shark's teeth, but we're seeing
Serious. dangerous.
full-size shovels and significantly deep holes being dug, and it's been brought to our attention that some folks are concerned about that, particularly the lack of, if they're not being filled in properly. And we looked around, and the other municipalities are starting to have to adopt these same sort of ordinances that dictate how deep the holes are, the type of shovel you can use to dig these holes, and how you fill the hole back in. So, wanted to bring it to council for consideration and discussion.
Yeah, I was concerned. In fact, I witnessed this last week, and literally, I saw a person, half of their body was down in a hole, and the only thing exposed was their hips and their legs, because they were down, head first, down in the hole digging.
Right.
And I saw, two individuals, and I was concerned about that also, as to what type of liability will we incur if they fall in that hole and it covers back up, like quicksand. So, and that was a concern, so definitely.
The next is 2022-20, that's a tree ordinance, which y'all had a discussion of no already, so we can. And the next is basically a housekeeping ordinance. The town is required to adopt whatever sections of, or updates of the International Building Code that the state LLR adopts, and this is just basically a housekeeping ordinance. Mike will make some recommendations in terms of the sections that we have to adopt to be in compliance with the state regulating board, and we'll be bringing that to you. Now, I asked him if there was anything, significant in the upgrades or changes to the building codes that would be incorporated, and it was not. if I remember.
The latest version.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, can I back up?
Yeah.
Ordinance 2022-19, ordinance regulating digging of holes.
at the Sands Beach.
Is it specific to the Sands Beach?
Yes, we probably could have dressed that up a little bit better in terms of the title, but we
Okay.
wanted y'all to understand it's about digging holes.
Well, I mean, we dig a lot of holes at my job, and I want to make sure. we
Sands
can-
Beach,
Okay,
yeah,
I got you.
yeah, so do.
That's fine.
Cable companies dig holes too.
Yeah.
Maybe we regulate them, make them use plastic shovels and we.
Okay, so we're gonna move into the second readings.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-12, we talked.
Yeah, this is the ordinance that had to do with the derelict boats, and obviously y'all received some input this evening. Based upon those discussions, we'll make some revisions relative to, one, the dimensional or the distance from boat landings. We initially there was some discussion that Folly Beach ordinance included a mile. I suggested a quarter of a mile, just because I think it's unrealistic to be that far apart. I just don't want boats right on top of the boat landings. That's a concern of mine. And we can also address some of the overnight mooring issues, because the real concern that we have is the abandoned boats that anchor and just get left.
And walk away from it.
Yeah, go take a look in Charleston Harbor right now at what's happening there, and that's a problem. It's become a navigational issue.
Boats sticking out of the water.
Boats sticking out of the water, and we just don't want to be there, and because of, like I said, of what they're doing in Florida now, we are going to see some migration of some boats, so,
Yeah, the Buccaneer came up from Florida when he first got here.
yeah,
It was pushed up, and you talk to those guys, it's like, it's getting expensive in Florida,
Yeah.
and it's true.
and you remember the night we spent,
Yeah, I do.
yeah, so.
And
Dealing with the boat.
with that, how would who would enforce this?
It would be the town. I mean, we.
Town.
Yes, and, we're not gonna have a boat
That's
patrol,
what I'm saying, they're gonna-
but obviously, we see a boat and go, that, we've noticed that boat's been here 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Let's put,
Okay.
Kangaroo in the boat, and he can go out and interface with them,
Okay.
and have a discussion, explaining what our concerns are. And the reality is if you're beyond the halfway point of that river, you're outside of our jurisdiction anyways. My concern is dealing with some of those boats that are moored in close that
Absolutely.
have been abandoned and could
Yeah,
become
I
an
was just
issue.
trying to figuring out, just how it
Right.
how it works out.
Yeah. The next is 2022-13. This is the ordinance relative to construction utilities, basically encroachment permit ordinance, which we did discuss. And I think that's certainly considered, we should consider passing. So. And the next is a resolution to adopt the Southern Low Country Stormwater Design Manual. I'm awaiting for a final recommendation from Michael on his review of the ordinance. I've been keeping him very busy working on scopes for grants, so he's jumping on this next. We may have it for next week, we may not. If not, we'll push to December. But I definitely want to get it done before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Council action, there are appointments there that we will have.
Now, you notice left off the design and review.
Yeah, we need to add that one.
Yes.
Defense Community Partnership Task Force, we had an interview this evening. Obviously, Regional Housing Trust as well as the Design Review Board, so y'all need to make some decisions. Dates, Tuesday, November 8th, Parks and Rec at 6:30 p.m. at Town Hall. That's obviously the voting day. Friday, November 11th is Veterans Day. We will be closed. Tuesday, the 15th, Redevelopment Commission at 4:30 p.m. Saturday, November 19th, Military Appreciation Day from 1 to 3 at the Naval Heritage Park. Thursday, November 24th, we will be obviously closed for Thanksgiving as well as Friday.
Is that 24th and 25th? I would
Yes,
imagine,
24th
right?
and 25th. And then on Wednesday, December 7th, we'll have our Port Royal Christmas tree lighting. And then on Saturday, December 10th, we will have the Port Royal Golf Cart Parade.
I don't know if you said it, but it's on the workshop one, but this Friday, got to shout out my Rotary clubs. I have the annual Oyster Roast at Live Oaks Park.
That's Friday, that's right.
From 3 to 7, it's always a big crowd and a good time, so.
And then, of course, next week, Penn Center, Historical Penn Center celebrates its Heritage Festival on the 10th, 11th, and 12th.
It's always fun.
Any other dates, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay.
And one of the things you meant that is not on here, but the public comment section.
Right, okay. Now, at that time, at this time, does anyone from the audience have anything before that? We ready to go into this public comment? Okay, we have a non-agenda item. We have Deborah Kosovo, representing the River Bend HOA Association.
So you already brought it up. Thank you very much. Really, we just want to thank you for such a prompt response to our request for this assistance. I did revise the original email with another point relating to the cost, that it would not be a burden passed on to Riverwind homeowners, Riverwind management. This is a copy of the original construction plans when the bridge was being built, and it does show the sound barrier that was never built. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Who was responsible for the sound barrier, the DOT or something?
It is a DOT-owned
I
road.
mean, who drew those plans for who? If it's a DOT road, I mean,
It's like an official plan to me.
so that'd be for
It
county.
says
right?
Beaver County, yes.
Beaver County, okay.
So basically, we ask that you guys support us and carry the ball for us, and the response that I got looks like you're willing to do that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
So that's just a conceptual, is that I mean, because I haven't seen this, and I'd like to see it.
Oh, sure. I don't know how we can spread it out for you.
I'll point to the area in question, please, okay, so we're right here at the.
Right here where the color, clay color is.
Okay. The green, the terracotta or the brown, okay.
And proposed wall, yes, there.
You know how many feet it is or anything?
I don't.
Thank you.
Advance it, we'll reach
Yeah.
out to
Yes.
them in regards to.
We wanted to thank.
And
you
yeah,
for
and
such
I-
a prompt response.
Absolutely.
And there may, I'll go check back and about the, because I remember the discussions, and it became an issue for sure.
So Deborah, we do thank you, and
thank you.
as I said, we will
I hate that it
definitely
wasn't.
reach out
It wasn't done at that time. I hate that it wasn't.
to the county and also to
Explained.
DOT in regards to your concerns.
Yeah,
Okay?
thanks for
Thank you.
preparing well for us.
Great, thank you. Do we have anyone else from the audience that wishes to say anything, address council? That being said, okay, well, again, we thank you all for coming out tonight, and it's been a long agenda, but of course, we plowed our way through, and again, we wish Mayor DeVito and Mary Beth good health, and hope to see them next week. Anything further from anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, this is not an official meeting, so we don't need a motion to close, so meeting adjourned.